What is going on, my fellow comic book readers, collectors, and enthusiasts alike? I am your host, Alt, here at Control-Alt-Defeat Comics, and if this is your first time checking out this channel, I want to say welcome. Thank you for checking me out. I really hope you enjoy yourself here today, and I've got a really killer video for you today, hopefully one that you will have a good time with. Today, I am going to be talking about my tips, tricks, and beginner's guide for collecting and or reading comics in 2026. Obviously, this is being recorded December of 2025, tail end of the year, but I wanted to make this video and get this out there to just talk a little bit to particularly the newer comic book readers and collectors, the people who are just getting interested in the hobby, maybe just coming back into it after being out of it for a long time. Or maybe you are a longtime collector and are just interested in some potential tips, tricks, or things that you might not know. In this, I'm going to go over a bunch of my accumulated comic book knowledge over the time that I've been collecting, a lot of stuff that I've gotten from other people that I have watched on YouTube, collectors that I've spoken to at conventions, in person, at my local comic shop, or online, and in general, just anything that I have picked up over the course of my time within this hobby. So if you go on to, take any of these tips and use them, please drop a like to let me know that you enjoyed this video and that it helped you. If you have any tips that you think I missed, please feel free to drop them in the comments down below so that way that other people can be aware of your tip. So, let's get started here. And first things first, very first thing, I'm going to break down what exactly is a comic. Now, that might seem stupid to some people, but there are a lot of different types of comics out there. Let's start with the most common, the most normal that you'll see. This is a single-issue comic, also sometimes known as a floppy. Why? Well, because they are floppy. And they are typically paper, almost always paper. Yeah. This is your average comic size. You're typically going to be about 32 pages-ish. For your standard comic, and your standard comics run anywhere between $3.99 to $5.99 now, depending on your book. But you've got plenty of other different types of comics. For example, like I said, you've got your regular single issues. Then you've got variant covers. This is a virgin variant. They're called virgin variants because they have no writing, no numbering. It is all just pure artwork. This is actually an exclusive virgin variant, I think from a Whatnot streamer. But yeah, they typically, well, a virgin variant will not have any artwork or anything like that on it. You get stuff like there's die cuts, or there's this, which is, I'm trying to think of what this is called. I can't remember exactly what this is called, but like you've got covers like this. It's got this like more plastic type feel here, and it is it is clear here so you can see the image through the thing. And then you've also got this. This is a card stock, so this is going to be a bit more almost like a cardboard type of material on the front and back cover, comparative to this, which is much more paper material, like every other page is going to be within that. Image Comics in particular does a lot of these cardstock front covers, and I really like that because it's a lot easier to keep protected and whatnot. Then you have got what is called a... Oh, shoot. I am dropping stuff. Then you have got what is called a trade paperback here. These are going to be a collection, usually about 5 to 6 single issues collected into a singular paperback format, typically paperback format. However, you do also have hardcover editions of trade paperbacks as well. So this is a hardcover trade paperback that comes with this little dust jacket on the outside to protect the hardcover book underneath. And yeah, so like this one here is a collection that gathers I think it's the entire story of Joker the World. And then this, for example, this is Radiant Black Volume 2, so this is a collection that collects issues 7 through 12 of the Radiant Black series. Now, this... Hang on one second, I want to see. There is something that you'll notice in here that you might not be able to see super well. You see that gap there in what is, like, right here? That's called the spine, or the eye of the comic. And the eye of the comic is... Sorry, give me just 1 second here. I need to plug my phone in. The eye of the comic is only going to appear on a hardcover or comic that is sewn bounding. So this is a glue-bound comic. Notice when I open it here, you don't get that little eye there. And if you notice, I can't really open it completely flat. This can cause, for example, this is actually a really good issue to showcase this. You see here, sometimes the middle, how you kind of like, you lose some of her definition, you lose some of this in here. That is why you get these particular books. I'm trying to find a good double-page spread here so that I can show you what I'm talking about. But like, you don't lose... Here, let me actually get you a better example. And talk about my next thing, which is going to be deluxe editions. Okay, this is the same size. Actually, so let's talk about this for a second. Sizes, okay? Deluxe editions are going to be the same. Actually, it looks like it's a little bigger, isn't it? It's supposed to be the same size as your standard issue. Anyway, they're supposed to be your standard issue size. Trade paperbacks are standard issue size. It is the same size as your regular comic here, and the same should be the case with hardcover deluxe editions as well. But this is a deluxe edition comic, so this is a bigger, thicker book. It's a collection that is a full story. These are also sometimes called graphic novels. You'll hear that a lot. You'll hear that terminology a lot. Again, comes with this dust jacket to protect the book. And you've got the, once again, you've got that eye down there and the sewn bounding to make sure the comic is, like, protected and whatnot. Not protected. To ensure, essentially, that it opens in the correct way. I am struggling to find a good 2-page spread. All right, well, I couldn't find one in there, so we're going to actually move on to our next type of book. So I've talked about deluxe editions here. Actually, before I move on to this, we're going to talk about these here. So this is a oversized deluxe edition. So for reference, here is a standard issue comic, and here is your oversized deluxe edition. And these, again, are these sewn binding books here, and this is going to be a fantastic example of, son of a gun, of the fact that you don't really lose as much in this because you're able to hold the book more flat thanks to that sewn binding. And these particular types of books, these big deluxe editions, they are fantastic for a few different reasons. The main one being that they are big, that they are oversized, so you're getting more of that art in that book. So you're getting to just enjoy more of the artwork from the story, and that is great. The next thing that we're going to talk about are the bigger collected editions. So compendiums, which are going to typically be a very large. This one is issues 0 through 47 of Invincible. For example, these are compendiums can come hardcover or softcover. They can come glued or sewn binding. This one is a glued binding. Ignore the fact that these are kind of falling apart. All these books are a little used and a little red. So that is a compendium, and compendiums are going to be the same size as a single issue comic here. Ignore the fact that that the single issue is a little bit bigger because of the back and board, but the actual comic itself is the same size as the book. Trust me on that one. In fact, here, I'll show you one that's not in the bag and board. And I'll talk about bags and boards a little bit later in this video. But yeah, so as you can see, they are standard size comics, or at least in terms of image size and stuff, so you're going to get the same size artwork. You're just getting a very large collection of books and stories in these, comparatively to something like this, which is an omnibus. Now, an omnibus is oversized, and you can, like, compare the two. You can see here that the Green Lantern book, the Green Lantern Volume 1 by Geoff Johns, it is bigger. It's a little bit thicker as well, but it is taller, it is wider, so you are getting that oversized style artwork with this. So far, I have never seen an Omni that is not sewn binding, but I am sure that they exist. This in particular is a story by Geoff Johns. This is Green Lantern Volume 1, and an omnibus will typically collect either an entire story, or in the case of something this big, or in this case, this is collecting a story by a particular writer on a character. In that case, it will collect in volumes. This is Volume 1. I do own 2 and 3. Ignore that this book is a little bit beat up. It's just been read a lot and is going to continue to be read a lot. Pro tip on omnis, on anything like this. Number 1, when you get a new omnibus, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take it, set it down flat on a table on its thing here, and you're going to want to open it like this and like this, and sort of layer them down a little at a time, so that way that you eventually get an even eye for big omnis like this. Because what will happen if you open one of these fresh, brand new, and you don't do that, what will happen is your eye will curve in a certain direction, and that will eventually cause your binding to loosen. Or at least it can. I'm not going to guarantee that it will, but it certainly can. Let's see here. Is there any others that I need to talk about? There are paperback omnibuses that exist. I don't have one off the top of my head right now, and I also don't have a DC Compact comic, but Compact comics are going to be sort of manga-sized. So this is... and I'll talk about manga as well right now, because manga are just Japanese comic books, right? And so this is a manga. This is a single manga volume. This is Volume 1 of Full Metal Alchemist. And this is considerably smaller, and they read the opposite direction that comic books do. So rather than reading your standard way like this, you would actually start back here and read this way. And a few companies make regular American comics. DC, Marvel does their own, like, compact series now. in this kind of like size and little mini format. Speaking of mini formats, another one that you might see is an Ashcan. So this is a very small little like sample size comic. They'll often be giving these away at they'll often be giving these little books away at your local comic shops and stuff like that. And they are considerably smaller, more compact than your typical comic, and they also are not going to be as many pages either. It's just kind of a little preview type thing for you. So that is the majority. There are other kinds of actually, another one that I want to show off real quick is a slab. You're going to hear that a lot. Or a graded comic. That is what a slab is. There are a few companies that do slabbing or comic book grading. There is this one, which is CGC. CGC is the most popular amongst collectors and sellers. They've just been in the game for a while, and they've just gotten themselves a very good reputation. There are also a few others. There is CBCS, and there is PSA has also started doing comic grading now. The benefits for doing something like this is mostly preservationary, at least if you're not trying to flip for profit. There is arguments to be said about, like, slabbing comics to increase their eventual sale price due to their preservation and whatnot. But personally, the reason I get slabbed comics, I get graded comics, is to preserve. This is always going to be at this 9.6, or at least as long as nothing horrendously bad happens, and this allows me to keep this book safe. This is great for stuff like what I have down here with my signed comics that I have put into my case down here, which I will probably show off in a little bit. It is just a great way to ensure that your collectibles stay in the condition that you have them in. Now, obviously, this means you can't open them. I also want to specify at least CGC and CBCS. I don't know about PSA because I have not looked enough into PSA's grading, but I can tell you for sure that the other two companies do not have UV protection built into these. So if you are displaying your comics, your graded comics, your slabbed comics, and you have natural light coming in that room, you may want to look into getting some kind of additional covering, like a plastic sleeve, to go over these in order to ensure that you don't get any fading on your comics. But yeah, so that is what a graded comic is. It's going to have a grade, a number here, usually a 1 to 10, or a 0 to 10 actually, because they can go like below 1. They can do like 0.5 and stuff like that. You will typically, at least for CGC, you will have a number here that you can go on their CGC website and look up. That is something that every collector, I think, needs to know, that if you're going online and you are shopping for a graded comic, look for this number here. It'll be located here as well as over here on the back for a CGC book anyway. And you can type that number into CGC and you can get all of the grading notes. It will give you high-res pictures of it, I do believe, as well, and everything. So you will know, and you'll be able to look at that. If you're buying a comic, say, on eBay or from a Whatnot seller or something, you can plug that in and look on CGC's website and see, like, is this the same comic that I'm seeing on their website? And learn, like, why it's got that grade, what the grader, like, said and docked them for on this. And also you will see here, this one is a, where is it listed? White pages, right here. So that is legitimately what it says. It is how white the internal pages of these comic books are in comparison to, like, them turning as a comic kind of ages and is not cared for properly, is allowed to oxidize. The white pages can turn more of a cream yellow color, especially on older comics. So that is something to kind of keep in mind and sort of try and fight to prevent in terms of that. Now, another thing when it comes to collecting comics here is you don't have to consume comics physically. you can consume comics digitally now as well. And I know some people are going to hate that. And they're like, no, comics are a physical medium. I need to hold it in my hands. And that is fine. You are totally okay to only care for comics as a physical medium. But that is not me. So I will show you some of these apps here. We have Marvel Unlimited. Now, these take a subscription service to read onto, but you can see here, like, I can just continue reading, and I can continue reading where I was on Ultimate Wolverine, and you can just, like, flip through and enjoy the pages of the comic as you wish here. And this one it's Marvel Unlimited, and, like, it's a great app here. So if you go down, you can do stuff like it'll have different events, and it's got trending titles here. It's got recommendeds, popular series. You can list it by characters. It is pretty nice, actually, how they've got this whole thing set up. And you can read comics. I think they release 30 days after their release in physical medium, if memory serves. Don't quote me on that one. For Marvel. And then DC, so Marvel's is Marvel Unlimited, and DC's is DC Infinite, DC Universe Infinite. And it has a multiple tier system. So you have one tier system that has less comics, and they come out every 6 months. Then you have a tier, which is the one I have here, where they come out and release every 30 days after release. And you can just, like, thumb through here. I really do enjoy DC Unlimited. And they also, I don't have as much experience with DC Unlimited as I do Marvel. Marvel Infinite. Or, I'm sorry, DC Infinite versus Marvel Unlimited. I keep confusing them. But you've got latest releases. You've got DC Go, which is kind of like an exclusive type thing. Then you've got trending series. You've got, like, new places to start with characters. So, like, this is nice if you are trying to get into, this is nice if you're trying to get into, like, reading a comic and you want to, or you're trying to get into a character. So that's that. There's also, you can read comics on, like, Kindle app. You can read them you can get them on Amazon and read them through that. Then another very useful app is this here. It's called a League of Comic Geeks. And what this app is, it is a just absolutely incredibly useful tool for comic book readers and collectors here. So what you can do with this here, you can, for example, go to new releases and say, click the new comics and hit all publishers. And this will show you all of the comics releasing this week. And if you can see it, you can go in here and you can click on a book and you can pull it. You can subscribe to the series so that way it automatically pulls for you, and everything like that. You can go in and, like, you can hit polls here, and it will tell you up top here the week, and it will even show you approximately how much you'll be spending that week. And then you can see, like, further weeks, and you can just go to the, again, back to this main calendar here, and you can go to the new comics, all publishers, and you can go through the weeks. Like, I can go here to next week, which is December 10th, and I can just scroll through and I can start selecting the comics that I want to add to my pull list, which I actually need to do, but not the point here. You can go in, you can select your pull list digitally, and it also keeps track of pulls. So you've got the ability even to look at, like here, for example, this is the final order cutoff. So these are books that will, the order is going to be sent out after this weekend. And so if you want to pre-order these comics, you can, pre-order them now. It's got a selection of newly announced comics. It's got a lot of stuff. You can also use this to organize and catalog your collections. If you want to keep track of what you have. For me, I've been trying to utilize this to keep track of my Fantastic Four collection because I'm trying to collect the entire run of Fantastic Four, which is like 1,000 comics at this point now. Well over, actually. And it's going okay. About as well as you can be expected anyway. And it is phenomenal for that purpose. And like I said, you've got all kinds of stuff. You can do like upcoming number ones. You can do recently announced comics here. And yeah, it's phenomenal. It is great. It is one of the apps that I think every comic book reader or collector should have. That and this. This is Key Collector. You've heard of this app before if you are in the comic book collecting scene, and if you are not, let me go ahead and just show you exactly what this does, okay? I'm going to take this comic here. This is a Absolute Green Lantern issue number 9. I'm going to set it down on my keyboard. I'm going to click my camera button here. I'm going to hit allow. I'm going to hit scan. I'm going to hit scan, and it is going to identify what that it did not properly identify that one. Okay, well, it is supposed to identify the comic that you scan. You should be able to scan a cover, and it'll look up the comic for you. You can also look up comics via just typing them in. It also has stuff like here, which is the trending 20, which are the 20 best-selling or like highest trending comics right now. You have got like dollar bin guides. You've got like specs, new keys, future keys. This is going to essentially help you if you are trying to figure out like what comics are going to be hot, what comics you should be buying in terms of like for a reselling perspective, or even just if you want to have a really cool comic in your collection. You don't have to want a key comic, which that's a term you're going to hear. A key comic. A key comic is a comic with something important in it, like a first appearance of a character, a new number one, some kind of big crazy revelation of some kind, a character's origin story or a retelling of their origin story. These are the kinds of things that would make a book a key. Again, the biggest one is first appearances. First appearances of a character are huge in terms of keys. If that character ends up being popular, well, people who end up loving that character, they want that first appearance. And I mean, understandably, I'm a big Deadpool fan, and I would love to get New Mutants 97, 98, 98, which is his first appearance. It would be awesome, and I would love that. So, it's one of those things, and it becomes high value because so many people like myself who become fans of the character end up demanding and wanting the comic. So that is how you get to that point. Now, let me talk a little bit, now that I've talked about all the different comics. I've talked about digital, I've talked about physical, I've talked about manga, I've talked about all kinds of things in the comic book scene, right? And now I want to talk a little bit about preservation, okay? How do we protect our comics? Well, here's one way. Comic book bags, and to go along with them, you have got comic book boards. There's a comic stuck to the back of that. Just move that out of the way. You've got comic book boards and comic book bags. So these are just little cardboard sheets that go behind your comic in the bag. So what you do is you take these. There will be a shinier side and a smoother matte side. You will take the comic book that you wish to preserve. So, for example, here, let me just move my whole stack so I can grab a good example and show you. So you'll take, let's just say here, this copy of Absolute Wonder Woman, and you will set it with the back on the shiny side, like so. And then what I will typically do, once I've got it on the bag and board, is I will take it and I will set it on like the top of a comic book stack or something like this, where I can have it hanging off the edge a little bit like this, you see? So then what I will do, again, making sure that you set the back of the comic against the shiny side of the board, so that you've got the front facing up here. And then you will go and you will take your comic book bags here, which these are these BCW. This is a fantastic brand of comic book. They make all kinds of comic book supplies and stuff, and they are phenomenal. It's like I said, BCW. They're available on Amazon. There's no sponsor, no plug. These are resealable. That's why I buy these in particular. Okay, so you will take your bag here, right? You'll find the flap, and you will make sure the long side is going up, is facing. So basically, you want the top of the comic to be inside of this flap. And then you will just, this is why I set it off the corner here, so then you can just sort of start it and feed it on in like so, just sort of like pushing it in with that. You get it all the way down, give it a little tap on your surface, and then for these, you will flip it over here, and you can see that there is this little piece of plastic here that's covering the adhesive, so we'll just peel that off. And the reason I like these bags and boards in particular, the adhesive is on this, not the flap. Because if the adhesive was on the flap, what would happen when you go to remove your comic book is that adhesive would make contact with the comic and potentially do damage to it, potentially rip your page or take some color off or what have you. So you don't want that happening. Okay, so then you'll just set it down. I'll like kind of push some of the air out, and then you'll just take the bottom or the flap and fold it over. And there you go. You have now got a nice and sealed copy of Wonder Woman for you here. Now, there is a chance that you could encounter a comic book that does not, a comic book bag and board that does not have this adhesive, okay? So, in that scenario, what you are going to do, I'm going to just use the same one as an example, but what you would do here is you would take this. This is painter's tape, or clean release painter's tape, or masking tape sometimes is it's referred to as well. And you will take this, and you will take a little strip here, like so. And what I will do is I will go to the corner, and you will angle it like this. Okay, see what I'm doing there? And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'll show you why that is in a moment. Okay? See here? So now you can just pull the corners to pull that tape. Now this tape is so weak because it's just painter's tape that even if it does get stuck on your comic book, it will not, even if it does come in contact with your comic, it will not rip any color off or anything like that. It will just come right off, easy, quick, no problems. The reason that you do it angled like this and in the corners rather than like one strip in the middle or like a sideways is because if you do it that way, and I don't have a great example of this right now, so you'll just have to kind of take my word for it because I've replaced most of my bags and boards with these adhesive ones now. But if you have one that is non-adhesive, like let's just pretend that this one is non-adhesive. In fact, let's cover the adhesive for a moment, just so then you don't have the adhesive. So what you have then, when you're putting this in a comic book box, which I'll talk about comic book boxes in a moment, you see what happens? These corners, these flaps, will do what they call dog ear, which is where the corner will stick up like two dog ears there, you know, and you'll have one on either side. That is how you prevent the dog earring effect on your comics, okay? So, now you know how to protect your comics, at least a little bit. But maybe you want to protect them a little bit more, but you're not at the point yet where you want to slab your comics. What can you do? Well, ta-da. These, and I will go grab one right here off of my wall. These are UV protected, and these are picture frames that fit your standard size comics. And you put them in the picture frame and then you seal it. And this is fairly protected. This is UV protected again. So if you want to hang these on your wall, which is how I display my comics, I even have a few like up here, just like, you know, sitting around. These are great for display purposes and stuff like that, as well as, again, it is an added layer of protection for your comics, and you're going to put them in a bag and board and then put them in here. So you've still got the protection of the bag and board plus the added protection of this. These are available on Amazon. I'll try to put a link down in the description if I remember to. Let me set these back real quick on my wall. Yeah, that's another great way to protect your comics. Now you're probably thinking, okay, so I've got all my comics bagged and boarded, but like, what do I do with them? Do I just like set them on the table flat? Do I just stack up a big old stack? Well, no, you don't want to do that. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a comic book box. They make short boxes and long boxes. Most of them will be cardboard. However, what I will recommend to you, and I will always recommend these to anybody in the comic book community, is going to be one of these. This is a BCW comic book box. It is a plastic storage bin for your comics. These open up here. So I'm just going to have to show you here. So these open up like this. They have these little slots here can fit dividers if you want to divide your comics. And then you can just slide your comics in here to protect them. Now, one other thing that you might notice about my comic book collection is how I store them. This is a big tip that I got when I first started. Do not store them just all facing one direction, because what happens is these spines here, which is what this part of the comic is, where the book folds, it's called the spine, right? These spines are thicker because of the staples and whatnot than these are. So when you stack a bunch of those all in a row, eventually this one side is going to be sticking out farther than this side, and it will eventually cause warping with your comics. It will cause them to curve and bend, and you don't want that. So in order to prevent that, you store them this way and then this way. So the way I have mine, I'm just going to take a little stack out here and show you that. So you start cover, back to back, and then cover to cover, like this. And then you just do it that way. And there's the dog ears that I've talked about, actually. This is a perfect example of a comic book that was used using Scotch tape, which, pro tip, Scotch tape, no. Do not ever put Scotch tape on your bags and boards, period. It is a terrible choice, and it will only serve to damage your comic books. It will only serve to cause your comic books to become damaged. So do not do that. Trust me on that one. You don't want it. Okay? But you can get these BCW comic book bins, which one of the things that I like about them is they've got handles on the sides. They've got these little slots here that you can put a cardstock into so you can easily label your comics. But they've also got here these little indents here are designed to fit with each other. So if you take a second one and you stack it on top, they're pretty much attached now, and they won't move. This is phenomenal for things like moving your comics, for things like keeping them organized and stored. And that is something I highly recommend that you get. Pick yourself up those black, they have other colors as well, actually, but those plastic BCW comic book bins, they come in a variety of sizes. So they come in long box, short box, which is what I have there. They also come in graded size if you want one to store slabbed comics in particular in. They have little locks on them so you can click those in place if you want them to not be able to be easily opened, if you have, like, pets or young children. They are obviously UV proof completely and whatnot. They are much more water resistant than just your average comic book box. They are a lot more resilient, and they don't break down as easily. So you've got that. They are a good investment, and I would recommend picking them up. However, other things you can find custom-made comic book boxes at a lot of places where you will have, I don't have any, I wish I did, where you will have a cardboard box, essentially, that is covered with art on it for different characters or things like that. And that is a phenomenal way to store your comics. Now, where do I start? I know this has been a lot of information already, and now you're just like, okay, I get all the protections, I get, what the different kinds of comics are, but where do I begin? And that is going to be a much more difficult question to answer, but I do have some suggestions here, okay? Number one, go to your local comic shop. Go on the internet. There are a few different websites that you can go to that will allow you to locate local comic shops in your area, and find local comic shops, go in there and talk to people. That is a great way to find out how to start. Just go in and, explain, hey, this is, have an idea of what you kind of want out of comics. Okay, so do you want superhero stories? Do you want sci-fi? Do you want horror? Do you want comedy? What are you looking to get out of it? Something I actually should have gone over earlier that I'm going to go over now is the big comic book companies. So you've got three kind of like bigger names when it comes to the comic book companies, and then you have the remainder, which are just referred to as indie comics, right? But you have DC, which is Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, The Flash. You've got superhero teams like the Justice League and the Justice Society, and anti-hero teams like the Suicide Squad. You've got villains like Joker and Bane. It is, very superhero focused. There are some horror books, there are some, other things in there, but it all kind of interconnects into this big superhero universe. And the same can be said of Marvel Comics. I don't seem to have an actual Marvel comic here, so I'm just going to show you the Marvel preview image for the sake of things. But, you'll notice them by their iconic Marvel logo. They are characters like Spider-Man and Deadpool, Captain America and Iron Man, Doctor Strange. They are teams like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Avengers. They are villains like Doctor Doom and Thanos and Loki. They are, again, another big superhero genre. And it is a lot of fun. I would say Marvel shines in their big, ensemble books, the big Avengers, the big crossover titles. Not that they don't have great, solo series as well. I just feel like they do better on that. And then you have Image Comics here. You can identify them with the I logo. They are sort of the big name when it comes to indie comics. They were started by a lot of big names within the comic book industry, including Todd McFarlane. And they have got a lot of really great creators and whatnot working for them. They have got a much bigger variety when it comes to comics, and they have a lot more comics that are more self-contained. So, for example, this Rook Exodus is part of the Ghost Machine universe, which is a universe of comics that includes stuff like this Rook Exodus book, and it includes stuff like Geiger, and I think Rockefellers as well, and a few other books. Junkyard Joe, I think, as well. And this book in particular is pretty self-contained even within that universe. But then you've got stuff like the Energon universe, which is a whole completely separate continuity. It's 3 different books that make up that. And then you've got a bunch of different, just completely self-contained stories that are purely based in themselves and do not need you to understand years and years and years of lore on characters. So that is all 3 of the big publishers. And then you've got other smaller name publishers. You've got people like Boom Studios, you've got Oni Press, you've got who makes this one again, Ignition Press. You've got a lot of different of these publishers that exist out there, but your big 3 are Marvel, DC, and Image. And as far as where to start with these characters, with these stories, well, number 1, the great thing about a lot of Marvel stories, a lot of DC stories, is that even though you've got a large amount of issues on a character, they will typically restart with a new number 1, and that will be a solid entry point for a character. Now, there are plenty of other ways that you can figure out a good starting point, too. There's plenty of top 10s that you can look up if you want to look up top 10 ways. I'm probably going to be uploading some top 10 videos in the future in terms of, great starting points for comics. So if you want to check some of those out, give a subscribe so you can be, ready when those drop. But what you do here is you can really, it really depends on what you want to get out of comics. For example, if you are a Green Lantern fan, there are a bunch of different Green Lantern stories that you could start with. You could start all the way back in, the old school Green Lantern comics, or you could start with something that's a little bit more modern, picking up something like this Green Lantern by Jeff Johns and reading through that omnibus. Omnibuses are a great way to start, especially if you can find a volume 1 of an omnibus. That is a great way to start because it is typically going to be a fairly contained story. You are going to have a start, middle, end, or at least if it's a single volume. Sometimes they're contained in more than one volume, so you might have a start and then you might have a middle on another book and then an end on another. But for the most part, if you start on a volume 1 of a omnibus, you are going to get a complete story, and you are going to get a story that you are going to enjoy. In terms of ongoings, there are a lot of really good ongoing stories right now that you can easily catch up in that are only, 5 to 10 issues, and you can easily catch up and then start reading. And you might be wondering, how do I start reading? Where do I go? Go to your local comic shop. Yes, you can buy comics online. Yes, you can pre-order comics on various websites and have them shipped to your house. Go to your local comic shop. There are so many reasons to go to your local comic shop. Number one being you're supporting local businesses, and that is huge. These businesses thrive and survive off of us, off of our money and our, business, right? So, sorry, you can just get my thing plugged in here. And so, go support them. Go, chat with the owners. Make a connection with the people running these shops. You would be surprised, how many of them how much information that they can give you. There are going to be your comic shop owners that you're not really going to ask them for advice, because their advice is going to be trying to sell you something, and you know that. But there are so many comic shop owners out there. If you go into their shop and you say, hey, I am just starting to get into comics, I like this character, or I like this genre. Like, if you go into a comic shop and be like, hey, so I'm just getting into comics, I'm really interested in horror. Do you have any good horror books out that you could recommend me? And maybe a good place to start, maybe a good trade paperback. A trade paperback is a great way to start because it's fairly inexpensive, right? Usually sitting around the $15 to $25 range for a good 6 issues of comic. And those 6 issues will typically be a story arc of some kind. It will typically be a whole story. It may not be the full finish of the story, but it will be a whole story. So if you can pick up a volume 1 trade paperback of something and read through that, then you can go from there. Then you can start doing what is called building a pull list, which is where you go to your shop and you tell them, these are the comics I want, and every week they will have those sitting for you, so that way that you have them. You don't have to worry about them not ordering enough and you not getting one off quick enough before they sell out. No, you've got it sitting back in your box, ready to go. You've just got to walk in, grab, get it, and pay for it. And that is a great way to start really building out a good selection of books to read, and just in general, a good collection of books to, have. But, talk online too. Go into Facebook groups. There's tons of there's Reddit groups, there's Facebook groups, there's Instagram, there's all kinds of places where people are talking about comics. And just get on there and talk to people. Tell them what you've read. If you've read anything before, tell them what kind of things you like. Tell them why you're interested in comic books. Are you interested because you just watched a comic book movie and you want to go read some comics? Or, did you learn about a character that made you interested? Or did somebody who's really into comics recommend you and tell you to read a particular run or a particular story? Or, what is the reason that you're interested in comics? And that will help further figure out what you will want to read. And from there, you will just start to figure out what kinds of stories you like. And you'll start slowly over the course of time learning what characters you like, learning what stories you do and don't like, learning even things like learning what writers you do and don't vibe with, what artists you do and don't like the art from, and a lot of other factors that you will slowly start to piece together here, forming your vaster comic book knowledge and know-how. So that is another big piece of advice for you when it comes to reading and collecting comics, is just find something that you like. Don't let it, and this is for readers and collectors alike, do not let FOMO, or the fear of missing out, make you spend way too much money on a comic that you're never going to read and that you're never going to sell. I'm guilty of that. I'm sure most collectors, readers, and whatnot are guilty of this as well, where they're just told, oh, this book's gonna be so good, it's got this new big character in it, it's this new first #1, you gotta pick it up, it's gonna be huge, it's going to secure your retirement. Number one, comics are not a investment. They're not. You should not look at them as an investment. Can they make you money? Yes. You can make money in this hobby. Are you going to make money in this hobby? Probably not. And if you do successfully make money in this hobby, it's probably because you don't actually read comics or collect comics. You are in it purely to make money, which is your prerogative, and I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that you're wrong for doing that. But I will say, if you are in this hobby purely to make money and not for the love of the hobby itself, you are in the wrong hobby. There are so many other hobbies that are just more profitable than comic books and are more steadily profitable. Comic books are not steady. Comic books are a very changing thing, and they change all the time what's popular and what's not. So comic books are incredibly fickle. Okay? There's plenty of other things that you can invest in. Don't get into this hobby thinking, I'm going to make money. I'm going to retire on this hobby. I'm going to get that one book that's going to make me so much money that I never have to work another job again. Don't do that. Go into this hobby with the desire to have fun. Either reading or collecting, whatever you want to do. Go into it with the desire that you're going to have a good time. And that's what you will. Go into it wanting to enjoy it, and you will. If you go into it trying to turn it into a career, you will only burn yourself out. That is my biggest word of advice for you when it comes to starting comics. And then another word of advice I will give you, actually. When purchasing comics online, be wary of your spending. There are certain websites that make it incredibly easy to rack up a huge amount of money very fast buying omnibuses or even just single issues. And it can become a problem with your budget very quick. Go into this with some intelligence. Make a budget for yourself. Whether that's a weekly budget, a monthly budget, or whatever, make yourself X amount of money that says, hey, I cannot go over this amount of money in this amount of time on comic books. Because this is a hobby that it is absolutely easy to sink thousands of dollars into without really realizing that you've done it. And suddenly you've got mountains of books sitting on your bookshelf, unread, unopened, still in the plastic, while you're waiting on 15 others to arrive from Amazon. And it becomes a problem. So don't overwhelm yourself at once. Pick up a few stories, try to read through a few things. If you feel like you can read more, pick up more. But don't overwhelm yourself. Don't get to a point where you're like, oh my God, the only thing I can do now is read all day or I'm going to be so far behind. This is supposed to be fun and this is supposed to be a hobby. Let it be fun, let it be a hobby, and enjoy yourself. That's the best advice I can give you. So yeah, like I said, and honestly, another thing, those online DC Infinite and Marvel Unlimited, use those to read stories. Okay? They are a certain amount of money a month. So if you are not willing to pay that much money a month, I understand. But I will say it is worth it, because you can sit here and you can read so many. DC Unlimited has like 30,000 different books inside of it. And Marvel Unlimited has a bunch as well. You can read 1 or 2 issues to find out if you like something before you want to go pick up a big deluxe edition or a big omnibus of it, and then end up wasting $100 on an omnibus that you end up only reading a little bit of and not liking. That's another great tip. Use these tools to your advantage, and you will have a great time in this hobby. This has been kind of my collection of tips and tricks for new comic book readers, comic book collectors, and comic book enthusiasts alike. If this video has been helpful to you at all, please drop a like, leave a comment down below, and let me know of any of these tricks that you didn't know about. If there's any tips and tricks that you have that I didn't cover in this video that you want to leave for other people, drop them down below. I love to have discussions in the comment sections. If you really enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would subscribe for future videos. I will be continuing to grind out comic book content on this channel going forward and whatnot. I'm going to continue working on my editing skills, working to improve on everything I can on this channel, so that way that it can be the best that it possibly can be for you guys, the viewers, who want to learn a little bit about comic books. That is going to be the end of me sitting here and yapping. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I sincerely appreciate you checking out my channel. If you enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. Any kind of feedback you can leave this channel is always greatly appreciated. And with that being said, I am going to get out of here. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.